Hello and welcome to the next episode of The Conscious Female Founder. I am Sally Talks. I'm the proud owner of this podcast and YouTube channel. I am also the proud owner of the company, The Empowerment Movement, where I work with other female entrepreneurs, helping them to add income streams into their business through passive income. I have had the absolute honor of being on Fox TV named as a woman of influence. I'm a best-selling international author and I am also a coach. So I'm super, super excited to be sat down with Ella today, who is our next lady up, who is an absolute powerhouse in herself. Ella used to be a secondary school teacher, but turned her passion into her business and now is using food to help other people connect. And this is such an amazing story. So I'm super excited to be sitting down with you today. So thank you for foremost, thank you so much for being able to do this with me, because I think this is a real example of where you have turned almost like a passion and a hobby into something so much more than that. So I'm going to pass it over to you. So I'd love you to introduce yourself properly and tell us a little bit about, I guess, like who you are and who you help and what you're doing today.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Sally. So as I said, my name's Ela and I run Cook, Eat, Joy, which is an Indian cookery school. But as she also mentioned, I didn't start, that's not what I've been doing for 20 odd years. So prior to that, I was actually a secondary school teacher. And I did that for nearly 20 years. And I love teaching, always loved teaching. But I kind of fell out of love of sort of the institutions around teaching and schools and everything. And I really started to want to follow more of my passion. And that's kind of where I realized that a lot of my time when I was off work was spent in the kitchen cooking. And I'm of a Gujarati Indian heritage. And that's the food that I grew up eating. And it's the food that I love to cook. And so that's where I started to think really about putting those two things together, which is the food of my heritage and teaching. And so Cook, Eat, Joy was kind of born out of that, really collaborating my two passions, teaching and food.
It's absolutely amazing. I think so. Well, first and foremost, I think what you've done here is absolutely incredible because yeah, you've brought two things together. I can completely understand how when you maybe were teaching, you kind of maybe not lost a passion for it, but maybe kind of felt yourself a bit of a crossroads in the sense of like if you felt like it was a bit of an institution. I know because we sat down together, like we sat down last week and we had a coffee, and you were obviously talking to me like quite openly and honestly and saying that you loved what you did, like you absolutely loved being with the kids, you loved teaching, you loved kind of helping them and sharing knowledge and things like that, and I loved that and I could really sense that as you were talking about it, which was lovely. But yeah, it's the institute, it's almost like the institution of it, kind of you were coming up against like roadblocks and things like that, and that wasn't enjoyable any longer. So then to be able to kind of rethink your brain and think, well, hang on a second, like I've got this skill that I'm good at and I know what I'm doing. And I've also got this passion for life and through food. And I'm assuming, obviously, if like through your childhood and things like that, and through your heritage, you must have spent quite a lot of time, maybe in the kitchen, maybe with your mom or something like that, like learning about food. And I guess in my brain, I kind of think like it's a way of bringing people together, right?
Absolutely. I think that's really at the heart of everything I do with the business. And even in my home, it's all about bringing people together. And actually, the whole idea of cooking and eating is definitely how I show my love. It's like, I provide people with hopefully an amazing meal,
Yeah, right.
food and sitting down together. It's such a lovely way of connecting with people, talking to each other. And yeah, it's definitely stemmed from my heritage and my childhood. The one thing we always did was we always sat down together as a family and we ate dinner together, whether it was, to talk, but always to share food together. And that was something that my family was, instilled in us. And something that I do with my family now is that we always have dinner together, and that's just having that bit of time to sit and connect with each other. And for us, it's our main meal. For some people, it might be breakfast. For some people, it's lunch that they get to sit down and connect with each other. But food is such a great way of connecting, not just with your family, but with friends, with family. You can always have a conversation with
Yes.
food. You can always say, oh, you know, we used to eat this, or we used to eat that, or, you know, have you ever heard of this vegetable? This is something we used to eat all the time. And it evokes so many memories and so much kind of happiness for people, and, you know, and joy.
It's almost like a relaxation tool, I think, sometimes. Like, you know, when you do sit down and you have a good meal, and whether it be like with your family or your friends or your kids or whatever, like when you're in that sort of environment, you're eating really good food. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel so much more relaxed. And then then you can have deeper conversations, and like that's where I guess like relationships flourish and things like that. It's a sense of relaxation as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think you feel relaxed. You feel like, you know, you feel quite satisfied as you're eating, and it's really sensory. You've got, you know, loads of different flavors, loads of different tastes, and so you do feel like completely relaxed. And I think that's when people do have those conversations. And that, yeah, I think it does come from connecting with, it allows you to connect with each other in that way.
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Talking a little bit like about your heritage, because I know we spoke about this obviously last week. You were saying obviously you're of Indian descent, but then you've also got African in your like in your bloodline and stuff like that. Like, how did that all work out?
Oh, so yeah, so my grandparents on both sides, maternal and paternal, are all from India, from the area of Gujarat, which is kind of the northwest part of India. But both sets of grandparents moved to East Africa quite a long time ago, obviously. So my dad was born and brought up in Kenya, and my mum was born and brought up in Zambia. So they didn't actually grow up in India at all. They both separately came to the UK in the early 60s, and then they met, got married. And so I was born and brought up in London, grew up my whole life in London. So yeah, so it's a kind of a quite a journey. It's quite a, I would say, like in my family, it's a journey that we know quite well. A lot of our family and people that my parents associated with, that was the similar journey that their families took as well. And so but what has happened is that we have then included some of those things from Kenyan dishes,
that's what I was going to say,
into our Indian kind of Gujarati food. So there's things, especially certain words and language that I always thought growing up were Gujarati words, but found out later as I got older that they were actually Swahili words.
Amazing.
And so there is that crossover between some of the foods that we ate, because they'd be considered maybe not completely Gujarati, but they have like this little Kenyan twist to them.
That's amazing. I love that. That's absolutely incredible. That's such a twist of like two different kind of like cultures and things like that, but bringing it together, like that would be absolutely incredible. Okay, cool. So obviously you were a secondary school teacher for a long time, like like 20 years, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
I take my hat off to you. Honestly, any other teacher out there, again, I take my hat off to you. I couldn't do it myself, but thank you very much for what you do. And you felt I guess, did you kind of get to a crossroads in life where you're a little bit like, I don't know, I'm just not enjoying it? Was it having a bit of an impact at home on your family? Like, because I appreciate that when there's something that's not quite working in our life, obviously it takes an impact on us, and then that can have a bit of a ripple effect on the people around us. And that's not saying that we do that through intent at all. But like, how did you find yourself in this sort of situation?
Yeah, so I was in my kind of early 40s, and I got two young children and a husband, and I was, you know, we were all both working really hard. He's also a teacher, and we were working hard, and just feeling though at getting to a point where it was home life and work life, there just was really very little balance, and it did feel like a bit of a treadmill that you kind of get up super early in the morning, and it was all about getting the kids to school, getting out of the house, rushing. Then I'd go to work, do that full day of work, then rush, get back, pick the kids up, eat something really quickly, you know, like trying to get that. And then for me, because I was teaching, I was then trying to get the kids to bed, and then trying to get so that I could quickly get on with doing some work, which I needed to do for the next day. And I just found that treadmill, and then my mood just was not always great, and it meant that I was always quite snappy with the kids, you know. I don't know if anyone else has kids, but like I know that just before bedtime is when they need to tell you the longer story. And it's kind of like, I haven't
You
got
get the big
time.
life questions at that point, don't you? You get the real big life questions. You're like, could we have not had this an hour ago?
I know, and you're sort of like, I can't do this. I need to get on with work. And so, yeah, I just found that it was getting to a point where it wasn't, if my mood wasn't great, it really was reflected in the whole household. And so, yeah, I just kind of started to really think about that. And I didn't just kind of quit one day and just go,
No,
okay,
no, of course, right?
It took me time to kind of have a think about, what is it that I really enjoy doing? What is it that I really love to do? And is there a way that I could change our home life to make it a bit better? And that's when, you know, I did decide, and I spoke to my husband, and we talked about, you know, the financial implications that would have, because that's really important to think about as well.
Of course.
And having him there to kind of support me, which was great. And he kind of said, look, if it would make, we can try it, and if it works, it works. If not, you know, teaching is always something that I could go back to, it's like being a secondary school teacher. So I kind of felt like I had that bit of a safety net. But yeah, I just was like, yeah, I'm going to throw myself into it. And I stopped teaching in the summer of 2019, started sort of, I kind of had that summer off, because I, you know, being a teacher, institutionalized,
used to,
having the 6 weeks off. So I then, came back in September. It was like new year, new start. And it really, you know, it really was amazing to kind of have a new passion, new kind of way of living. And it really gave me time to do things, even at home, that were more thoughtful. So like before, if it was my daughter's birthday, I would, you know, just go to a soft play and just get that done. Whereas this time round, it was, you know, I organized like a whole party at home for her. You know, they'd made cookies, they made lip balms, they designed little tote bags, but I had the headspace to do that. And up until that point, I really hadn't. But I was still researching and doing work into the background of my business, and I started doing some cooking classes. I started to do a few pop-ups, like supper clubs and things as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
just to kind of get myself out there and start to live what I started to see as a very different life to the life I had been living. And getting a more of a business brain, because up until now I'd been very much a teacher brain at school, and kind of very routined in the way I did things. So it was very different, but you know, I loved the freedom that it gave me. And it was difficult to start with, and it's not, you know, there are times where it's still difficult now, but
of course, right, with business owners, you come up against different obstacles all the time, right?
But our home life was so much better. And even now, I still would say, like, our home life is so much better, because I'm a much calmer person, and the whole household is just so much calmer as a result of that. Just having time for each other, having those conversations. Now I now have teenagers, so actually conversations are almost quite limited.
But love that.
But they still want to talk to you. And actually, what I love is, on many occasions, I'm home when they get home from school. And I find that kind of half an hour when they come in, for them to just have a bit of time to just talk at me and get over whatever they needed to get over about their day. They don't want me to solve any problems. They just want to give out and let their kind of rage about the day or whatever it might be, or what's happened. They just get, like, I get that information, and then they're kind of happy to go off and do their own thing. And I do notice the difference on the days when I'm not home, and then I'll ask them about their day, and it's a bit of a, it's all right, and that's all I get. But it's such a difference, and so I do enjoy the fact that I have this freedom and flexibility to kind of move around them a little bit, you know, and that works really well for us.
That's amazing. So, because I'll get to this point in a minute, but I know obviously when we were talking about like how you're kind of like connecting people through food, and we'll get to that point in a minute, in the sense of kind of like the classes you're running and what you're doing within the business. But equally at the same time, I think this is a really important point to kind of touch on, is the fact that this has had a much bigger effect in regards to the connection within your family as well. And it's had such a positive effect. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying to you like, oh yeah, like that must have been so easy, like give up your job and change your passion, because there are other things to take into consideration, like you said, like the money side of things, right? You still got a house to run, and you know, your kids still want to go out and do classes and clubs and da 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 da. So I completely appreciate that. But I think it's so nice to see when someone goes, okay, cool, like this isn't working for me. What I'm doing right now isn't working. So I'm going to invest in myself and we're going to go with it. Especially the fact that your husband supported you as well is just amazing, because some people might have that and some people might not have that. So it's lovely that he did that, and that you're now seeing that this has such, it's a ripple effect, right? You've invested into yourself. You sat there and gone, right, not happy with that, not working with that, let's do this, let's give this a try. And it's had such an amazing ripple effect, and even within the connection within your children and things like that, that now they want to and maybe have those conversations. And maybe if you'd been still in your previous job, you either wouldn't have time or headspace almost to be able to have that.
Yeah, definitely felt like, prior I was much more preoccupied with other things in my brain, and now I'm, I can be focused on them and have those conversations. And so yeah, those ripple effects are there, and I think as a part of that, and I think because I'm so much more content, I think with life in general, that I think comes through the business. It's like it's bringing people kind of contentment and happiness and joy, and kind of I want to give that because that's how I feel. And and food is one way of doing it, is to bringing that joy and that contentment to people, because I think it's a way of spending time with people. But also sometimes for me, cooking is a time for me to just have to myself as well, and just have a bit of space. I always kind of joke about how there's a Gujarati flatbread called chapatis, or rotli as we call them. And growing up, I used to hate having to make chapatis, because we used to have to make them every day. And when you're like 14, you don't want to be doing that. You want to be watching Neighbours and Home and Away. You don't want you don't want to be doing that.
Right.
But now I have to be honest, I don't make chapatis every day, but when I do make them, which is 2-3 times a week, I now really love it. It's kind of gives me peace. I can put music on, I can listen to a podcast, I get into a zone, I have a rhythm going, and it's just a super mindful activity. And it really does actually not just connect me to what I'm doing, but it connects me to my heritage, because everything about eating chapatis and rotli is just so much about who I am as a person, and connects me to, it reminds me of when I was little and making them with my mum and my grandma, and and those kind of things. So it does give me that connection.
I absolutely love that. That is amazing. That's such a nice story. And it's so true as well, right? Yeah, it takes you back to those moments, especially if you used to do them as a child, especially with your elders and things like that. Then yes, absolutely. That's incredible. I love that. And that will come through in the food that you cook, right? And then that will come through in how you teach people as well, because it comes from a place of love and memories. And that's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Obviously, like, if anyone was sitting here and they hear your story, they're like, wow, that's amazing. It hasn't always been easy, has it? It hasn't always, because I know when you were telling me your story, you kind of said to me, oh, you made this jump, and then obviously the big COVID hit.
Oh yeah, so I mean, and it's scary even to make that jump, right?
Goodness, right?
The day you hand in your resignation and just kind of go, right, I'm no longer
going
to. It's quite scary. So yeah, there's been times where it's been really scary, and then there were times when obviously started the business, starting to get a bit of momentum, and then COVID happened, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, right, okay, I can move on to doing cooking lessons online, but it's not really the same. And I know that there are lots of online cooking classes and people who do love that, and there is a place for it, but I knew that it wasn't 100% for me. But I still wanted to do what I was doing. So I did do a few online cooking classes, but what happened for me was I kind of started to think about different things. But one of my son's friends' parents, actually, they were getting a bit bored of eating the same food all the time, and just asked if I'd cook them something. So I was like, sure, yeah, I made them something to eat. She just then posted it on Facebook that she'd had this lovely meal that I cooked her. And then all of a sudden I was getting, messages, oh, are you doing a takeaway? Are you doing a local takeaway? And then before I knew it, I was like, every Friday night during lockdown, I was suddenly doing a local takeaway. And, I had like people like my neighbours across the road. I had people down the street, coming to queue up on a Friday.
I love that.
That was just it. And it grew really organically. And it was lovely, actually, because everyone was kind of, safely coming to collect their food, but you could kind of have a little bit of a chat. And and they were getting a meal that honestly I truly cooked from the bottom of my heart, because it really, cooking for me and feeding people is just so important, and it just makes me so happy. And that it was so happy, and to see these people coming back week after week after week and going, oh, I can't wait for Friday because I know I'm going to get you to eat your food. And it was, but yeah, so that was kind of a way of just moving the business to kind of still keep the name kind of busy out there, and keep myself busy as well, but using something like a challenge of COVID and kind of trying to make the most out of it. And it is a bit of a mind shift, and trying to get your how do you kind of do those things. It is difficult at times, and there's always times where you come up against something else. And I'm a woman of color, so I know sometimes when I go into places and I want to hire a venue, sometimes there's a definite no, and you get the kind of feeling quite quickly. It's not going to be overt, but there's an undertone, so and you move on, but you take that and you kind of go, right, I understand that, but that I'm not for them, they're not for me, and we move on, find somewhere else that is. And sometimes it's the best thing, because you do learn from those kind of things, and it's given me a lot more resilience, and a bit more determination sometimes when I meet people or go to places, and it's kind of, what, you might not want me, but there are hundreds of other places that will be
do.
And so and it gives you that kind of fire, really, and motivation to move on.
I absolutely love that. I love, obviously, not that you've been obviously subjected to those sorts of incidences, but that the fact that actually you kind of used it as a bit of a superpower, to be like, do you know what, that's okay. You don't want me, that's fine, I'm going to go and find someone else that does, because there's a hell of a lot of other people that do. And I take my hat off to you for that, because it could, for so many other people, it could be the thing that kind of makes them stop, and yet they have something so incredible to give to this world. But for you, you've kind of used it almost as your superpower to be like, yeah, cool, fine, I'm just going to prove you wrong anyway, so watch out. So that is absolutely amazing. I love that. And I know, obviously, I when you told me the story of COVID, I was like, that's absolutely brilliant, because you were like, yeah, I sort of like ended up setting up my own takeaway service without even realizing I was setting it up, and it just expanded and grew and grew and grew. And I love, because what you were saying to me when we were chatting, you're saying, oh yeah, like on a Monday I take people's order, and then on a Friday they'd come and pick them up. And that's so amazing. But it shows that sometimes in business, and when we set up a business on we have like these really clear visions of what we want the business to look like, and sometimes things are completely out of our control, like COVID or anything else like that. And it's in that moment whether you decide, oh, do you know what, this thing has happened to me, it's happened to me, or whether you sit there and go, okay, this isn't exactly what I expected to happen, especially as a new business, but I'm going to pivot and I'm going to try something else, and I'm still passionate about what I do. And that's why I loved that story so much, and why I wanted you to share it, because I was like, that is absolutely amazing, because you could have at that point quit and been like, oh, I gave it a go now, that doesn't but you didn't, and you carried on, and you showed a sense of resilience. I think one of the big things for me, I see when I see amazing women setting up businesses of their own, is sometimes a lack of like maybe confidence or imposter syndrome, or seeing someone else and being like, oh, they're better than me, or having a bit of a lack of something. Have you ever felt like that at all, kind of through this period, where you're like, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not confident? Have you ever felt like that?
Absolutely. I think there's so many times, like, I could say that's happened. And I think like confidence is almost quite fluid, because I think at times sometimes you feel like, oh, you could take on the world.
Oh, right, you do.
You
yeah, 100%.
do anything. And then other times you just think, oh my God, I just can't do a thing. Like
I want to hide under the bed.
Yeah, just that's it. Like I'm done,
Yeah.
And I think it is, and there's times where, I've felt that imposter syndrome. I've gone into places and I'm not a trained chef. I am a home cook who's turned my, all my years of experience in terms of home cooking, and I've turned that into a business. But what and you do get that when you're around people who've been trained at particular Michelin star restaurants, or prestigious culinary schools. Okay, right. But then I've done that kind of work on myself, in the sense of like I have to kind of ground myself again and remind myself, right, I'm still here though. Like they
Yes.
might have that, but I'm still here and I'm still delivering something that I'm the expert in this field. They might be brilliant at doing loads of other things, but they're not necessarily the expert in what I do, which is why I'm there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. So
Yeah.
I try and kind of always remind myself in those times when confidence is lacking, and there's times where you come across things and you're in a room of some fabulous women who have started businesses from scratch, and sometimes that worst thing that we always do to each other is we compare, and you
Oh
compare
God,
your
right.
journey to their journey, but everyone's journey is so different. And I think it's like remembering that just because they're up here doesn't mean that you're massively below them or anything like that. It's just you're in a different point, and you've got to kind of remember that, be happy and proud and whatever it is for them, but also not to kind of, I think I've started to work so much more on there's no point, no space for kind of envy and jealousy and comparison that makes you then feel worse. If anything, it should be about, if they can do that, then so can I.
So can
Actually,
I.
I can work through these steps and I can do the same thing. So yeah, definitely times where my confidence, even now, there's times where your confidence is just at the floor. But then, just reminding myself, sometimes it is just going through and go, you know what, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, going through even my teaching career, I've done some amazing things. And I still see some of the kids that I taught when I was a teacher, and they're doing so well. And it reminds me that actually what I do has an impact. Or sometimes someone will send me, oh, I cooked this amazing meal from the recipe you sent me, or from our cooking class, and it just reminds me of actually the skills that I provide give people something else, and they can take that and get inspired by that and do something with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you just said a minute ago in regards to, because there's always gonna be someone that's doing the same thing as you, right? And there's always going to be someone that's doing it 5 years in front of you, right? They've been doing it longer. But I love what you said, because this is so true. And this is something that I think I did a podcast on this a little while ago, in regards to that they're not you though, right? So there is always someone doing something that you're doing. But if you're doing it your way and you're putting your stamp on it, then it's still different. And you're still putting your love and your effort into it, and making it your own. So yes, like for me, there'll be other business coaches out there, and there'll be other mindset coaches. And for you, there'll be other people that are running cookery businesses and cookery classes, but you're still putting your own stamp on it. So that should never, ever, ever determine, ever I guess demotivate anybody from kind of going for what it is that they want, or for their dreams, or whether it should be to set up their own business. Yes, there's always going to be someone else, but go ahead anyway, because you're still going to make it your own. You're still going to make it unique. You're still going to put your own stamp on it. And I love that. That is absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. I think it's really important to know that, I think I've, even my teaching career, or, even now, I've always kind of see that I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm a full introvert, but I'm not a huge extrovert either. Not like really out there, shouty kind of person. That's who I am. But I have my style, and I know my style works. It fits for certain people. And, and obviously, it's like a cup of tea. You're not always everyone's cup of tea, right? And that's fine, because not everyone is my cup of tea. And I completely understand that. So, when you meet people and you kind of gel with them, that's brilliant. And sometimes you don't always gel with people, but you can still deliver a great service for them as well. But it's about kind of remembering that if I stay true to myself and who I am, and I don't try to pretend to be something I'm not, then I feel like it'll always work, because I'm being completely honest and genuine and open about who I am. And therefore I think that comes through then in the way I teach and the way I deliver things.
It will.
That comes through then.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, sometimes I think it's so easy to slip into this mold of like, oh, well, I should be like this, because the person who's doing more, who is more successful than me, well, they do it like that and that works. And it's like, actually, don't know. Be yourself, be authentic, and you will attract the right people. Or that's genuinely what I believe. I will end up attracting the right people into my world, whatever that might look like. And I like being like that. I don't want to fit into someone else's mold, because that won't feel right, and it will feel like I'm going against the grain, and I'm not showing up authentically as myself or helping other people. So I love the fact that you touched on that, because to me that is so true, like so true. One of the big things for me, like, so I don't really know this because we haven't really spoken about this, but I'm quite a spiritual person. I know spirituality, like the word can get thrown around quite a lot, and it can look like it can look very different for different people. For me, I think it's a place of kind of gratitude and just I think being at peace with myself and really listening to kind of like the energy around me and my gut feeling and my gut instincts and things like that. So I do lean on that quite heavily. And there's practices that I do every single day where I kind of reflect on maybe something that's happened the day before or something that I want to achieve like the next day. Is there anything that you do on like a, I guess, a day-to-day basis that kind of is a piece of like maybe spirituality, whatever that might look like for you, or like a piece of gratitude for where you've come, and how does that kind of look for you?
Yeah, so I was brought up a Hindu, which for me is, it's a really spiritual way of being. I know that there's, I'm not, there's people who'll say, oh, that's not doing what I do is maybe not a true Hindu or whatever. But like the way I see it is very spiritual. It's about me and my connection. So the way I kind of see it is it's about being a good person. So delivering something that's being good as much as you can be. So you see something, try to always, be the person who does the right thing, and sometimes it can feel like at times you can be cross and you can be angry about something and you feel like you want to do the wrong thing. But actually, I always think, you know what, I always kind of take a step back, take a breath and go, if I react in this way, then they're going to react in that way. And then it's just going to escalate and it's going to get worse. And if anything, if I can just take a step back and go, no, I'll do this and I'll say this, then that often can change. So for me, it's kind of that spirituality comes from kind of, it sounds really silly, but it's just about being a really good person, and what you give out comes back to you. So I kind of feel like if I can show and be a really good person, as good as I can be, in lots of different ways, whether that's, letting someone in when you're driving,
right,
whether it's, helping someone across the street, whatever it might be, however form it takes, if you see someone that's lost and helping them, or asking someone if they're okay, talking to your neighbor because how they don't speak to many people, anything you can do that can just show some kindness. And that's kind of, for me, it's about connection, and it's about connecting with people, and that then makes me feel so much more connected to myself in a lot of ways. And that kind of, I do kind of, as a Hindu, you don't have to go to the temple all the time, but you have like a home temple in your home. So I do kind of spend, even if it's just 5 minutes, just in a bit of peace, a bit of quiet, and just kind of breathing, thinking, trying to kind of just reflect on my day. Maybe it's, what I want to do with that day or that week, just kind of having that bit of time. Sometimes it's like, I think there's so much noise.
Oh my gosh, isn't there?
Actually just taking 5 minutes, just a bit of peace. And I walk most mornings now as well, and it's so lovely just to get out there, get a bit of, even if it's 20 minutes, if I only have time for 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh, it all helps, right?
Just getting out for the day. And sometimes, you don't need to be listening to anything, you just need to just walk, just go for a nice walk. Like at the moment there's loads of nice daffodils out and stuff.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful time of year. I love this time of year.
It's so nice. So I think spirituality for me is kind of, it's that kind of connection with people. It's kind of taking a bit of time, a bit of quiet space as well.
I absolutely love that. It's almost like connection back with yourself, right? And I feel that massively. I do the same thing. Like sometimes I'll go for a walk, sometimes I'll just sit there and journal, sometimes I'll think about like the things that I'm actually really, really grateful for. Sometimes I'll do a bit of breath work, and it's a sense of connection back with myself, and what I have achieved and what I want to go on and achieve. But just being really, really still and really, really present, because what you said, you hit the nail on the head. There is so much noise. And I think it's really interesting because sometimes I've personally found you get periods of like almost like when these sort of like things that you do, these daily routines that you do, you just get busy and they drop off, and it's not through intent, you're just busier than normal. And then I almost find myself kind of in a worse headspace. And you kind of, then it's only when it's like been a week or something like that, and you're like, oh God, like I don't feel great, or or something like my mind isn't feeling good. And you're like, well, I haven't been doing the things that actually just bring me back to connection with myself, bring me back to a sense of peace, a sense of calm, a sense of gratitude. And then I can carry on with my day. So I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. So
I think it's just trying to think. I think it's trying to find those kind of, for me anyways, those internal things that make me happy, as opposed to external factors.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, at times it is just, communicating with people that I care about, doing what I love. All of those things, they make me really happy. And they are external, but it's also knowing that I can be content in myself. So having that 5-10 minutes of space, no noise, no nothing, just to think. And like you say, whether it's thinking about your day, being grateful for things, thinking about where you want to be in the future, just a few minutes even.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be long. That's the thing. I think sometimes people look at it and go, oh, I haven't got an hour or 2 hours before my day, I'm busy. And it's like, actually, it doesn't need to be that. Like, it can literally be a few minutes. It can be 5 minutes. You just sit there in peace and calm, gratitude. So yeah, I think that's so true. I know, obviously, we're into 2025 now, and when I was talking to you the other day, you were saying you've got quite a few business plans, like you're coming up. Obviously, you're running your classes at the moment, which I really want to do. Actually, I'm quite desperate to come and do one of these because it's going to be amazing. And I know, obviously, you're working with a cookery school in London as well, aren't you? What are your sort of like your business plans, or for the rest of 2025, or what is it you'd like to achieve?
So I think for me, in this year, I hope anyway, that I do classes which are, so you can have like a private class, you can have a group class, and I've started to do some kind of small classes a full class is like 2 to 3 hours long, but I've started to do kind of shorter classes, so an hour and a half long. So I did a few that were during the day, and now I'm starting to do some of those in the evenings, just to see if people, because some people don't have time in the day to do them. Because they're at work, so they have time maybe in the evening, so kind of doing that. So I've got those classes kind of built in, and I'm also starting to work with sort of small corporates, in terms of, like a small corporate company who maybe want to have either team building activities or well-being activity, and cooking being the vehicle for that. So whether it's, for team building, and they really want to work on their teams, to work on, communication, listening, collaboration, which are great things to have in your team and working well, but using cooking as a vehicle for that. Or if it's, just a pure well-being activity for corporate. So, and if you're a small business with about 10 or 40 people in your business, you don't necessarily want a massive thing, but just something where, and the way that my business works is that I'm fully mobile. So either people come to my home and I do classes, or I go to your home, or I can go to an office building, because everything's completely portable. So I just bring everything and have a class in your office or wherever, small space, and then have a wonderful meal and sit down and talk to each other about the meal that you've cooked, as well as kind of then connecting in that way as well. But so that's kind of, so in terms of like the business, it's kind of growing the classes that I have already, and then trying to kind of establish some more kind of corporate classes, and then also I would love to, in the next year or so, have a recipe get published, because I think of so many recipes that I have. So
you should do that. You could write a book, not just one recipe.
I have so many recipes and that's the other thing, is like a lot of all the recipes that I have are actually all, family recipes, or recipes that I've developed. So they're not things that you can kind of find out there already. So I kind of, I've actually tried and tested all of the recipes. Because so many recipes that, the way that a lot of Indian parents taught you how to cook was you just put it in, just put that in, put that in, put that in. There's no measurements.
Just if it tastes good.
They're just
like, that kind of cooking. That's my kind of cooking.
It was very much like, you just know how much. And then as I grew up, that's how I learned to cook.
Of course, right.
Just know. And so like all my recipes are now, tried and tested, so that they work. So to have one of those recipes published this year would be amazing.
Absolutely, go for it. I cannot support you more. Like, I think you would be brilliant at that. And like I said, the like you said, rather, that like these are all things that you picked up. So they're proper, they're authentic. So it's absolutely incredible. And I also love as well what you're doing in regards to the corporate world. Well, not just the corporate world, in regards to your business, almost using food and cooking as a vehicle for connection,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of, because I think when you are in those environments, yes, you can bring up other subjects, maybe trickier subjects that you can't really talk about normally, but you're using it as a way to bring people together, and that is absolutely incredible. Like, and that's why I'm such a big supporter of what you're doing. I think it's brilliant. And obviously you've also, just to touch really quickly, you got named as one of the top female entrepreneurs, didn't you, of 2024?
Yeah. So last year I was named as one of the top 100 female entrepreneurs of 2024. So yeah, that's kind of like such a highlight. I just didn't think.
Yes, and so it should be
For
well
me, I thought,
done.
like, it's like such a what I feel like such a small business, and yet to be kind of given that kind of award was just amazing. I was just blown away, really. So that was great.
Well, that's amazing. It's credit to your hard work and keeping focus, even on those days like we spoke about, where like your confidence isn't great, or you're feeling like, oh my gosh, like, am I doing this? Or like the whole thing, your whole story. I absolutely take my hat off to you. If there, so this is one of the last questions that I generally ask people. If there is somebody who's in your shoes, but 5 years ago, doesn't have to necessarily be cooking in this instance, but has got a passion for something and has done for a really, really long time, but is maybe feeling like their back is a bit up against the wall and they don't know what to do, but they want to try and turn their passion into a business, what would be one of the biggest, I guess, like takeaways that you could give them as to how to do that?
I'd say, you don't have to completely, quit your job like I did. You can start to do the research, do the background work, and just maybe even do like a trial of something that maybe, whether it's, a product or service, see if you can do that alongside your work. And then, just to see if it's something that actually, do you really like this?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Because sometimes you think you might be, because it's different to what you're doing now.
Doing anyway. Yeah, it's so true, right?
But it might not be what you're really passionate about. It's just something that you kind of do. So yeah, maybe do it alongside. I think it's quite difficult in this day and age to just go, yeah, unless you've got,
Pots
an
of money.
investor,
Yeah.
it's really difficult. But I would say, but don't give up on it. Don't just kind of go, oh, well, that's just a pipe dream. Really genuinely have a go at doing it. Try and find the time, try and really think about, where can you find the time to do these things? And I think we all do have that time. We're all kind of a bit, and I'm no, saint for this, but
Same here, right?
Wasting our time just scrolling on Instagram and all that.
Yeah.
Kind of like really thinking about trying to limit those kind of things, and like focusing your energy and your time into maybe doing something that can change your life, And I would say, like, going from being a secondary school teacher, and I was truly drained from it. And like I said, I love teaching and I love being around those children, young people, but to move into what I'm doing now, it has completely transformed me as a person, in terms of how I feel about myself, but also that affects, throughout our family,
wider effect
is much better as well, and so it can be transformative. So I'd say, if you are thinking about it, don't just kind of think, oh, it's for somebody else. It can be for you as well, but just have a go at trying it before you kind of take that complete leap of faith.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you so much for sharing with us what you're doing with your business. Obviously, what I will do is add all the links to your website and everything in the comment section underneath. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, whether that be people wanting to come for a cookery course, obviously at your home, or whether that's corporate, or if anyone's got any questions as well, right, they can always reach out to you and ask. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. I absolutely love your story. I'm so excited to see where this will go as well, because I've got a feeling this is going to go really, really far. But equally, like, just thank you for being here together with me today. So yeah, thank you so much, my love.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, cool. Any questions, then give us a shout.
Okay.
All right, cheers, guys. Take care.